Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU fan podcast. My name is Jordan. With me, as always, breaking down X-Men 97 is Ron. How you doing, Ron?
I'm doing good, man. I kind of woke up today feeling like somebody ripped my adamantium skeleton out of my body, and then I watched it actually happen to somebody and said, maybe that's not the best comparison. But besides from that, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing very good.
I actually had a dream of this is not related. I actually had a dream of running a red light and I got caught on the red light camera and I had to tell my wife, I'm like, this ticket's coming in the mail. And I woke up and my first thought was, oh, thank God, no, no ticket.
All right. So I guess, yeah, you kind of woke up with relief. So kind of two ends of the
Yeah, I
spectrum.
didn't. I felt the opposite of the adamantium
it
getting
was like
ripped
you
out of
got
me.
your
I guess
skeleton. Yeah, your
I
adamantium
got it
skeleton
back
pushed
in.
back into your body. Yeah.
But yeah, we're talking X-Men 97, Episode 9, uh, Tolerance is Extinction, Part Duh.
Duh. Folly, duh. Yeah. And so like I know we've got a lot to get into here. But just kind of right off the rip, if you wouldn't mind letting me hop up on a soapbox for a second. And
What?
yeah,
What? This is
yeah, I know, very unlike me to do when it comes to the X-Men. But I just kind of wanted to sort of wax poetic for a second here to kick us
sure.
off because a part of this week's episode and kind of everything this season that led up to it just resonated with me very strongly this week. So I kind of wanted to kick off the show with it. So anybody who listens to this show knows that my favorite mutant is Jean Grey. Obviously, I wear a shirt every week. Yes, I do wash it for anybody wondering, but she's just always been my favorite. And the way that they sort of culminate, or I should say, began to culminate her story in this episode. I'd imagine it's going to continue next week in a much more fiery form, I'd imagine. But the stuff we got in this episode and the way that it was so much a full circle of everything from episode 1 and everything we've seen of her story up to now, just it stuck out like a sore thumb to me in a good way in this episode, and it just resonated with me hard because we get, obviously, remember in episode 1 there's that conversation where she's talking to Storm and we get the glimpse of the Marvel Girl suit, and they kind of make some reference of Jean's past and the Phoenix and all that. And obviously in this episode, everybody got their old suits, but Jean is the only one throughout the show that they made a point to kind of highlight that earlier on. Like, we didn't get any shots of Cyclops looking in his dresser being like, oh, those were the good old days with his suit that he's wearing, So they not only gave us that sort of full circle moment with her in a physical sense, where by donning that suit again, I kind of got the vibe of whether it's old Jean / Marvel Girl or current Jean or Madeline, no matter what, as I drop my microphone here, it was just very symbolic of the fact to me that it's all Jean, and she's kind of finally come to terms with everything she's been struggling with this season. Because as we know, the whole crux of her story this season has been, what is Madeline and what is me? Where does she end and where do I begin? And the way that they bring it all back around in this episode, and Sinister literally offers to give her the answer, even if it was, just as a tactic to try to get out of it. He says to her, I will tell you when I switched you guys if you ask nicely. And she doesn't even think. She's like, no, me and Madeline fight together now. It was so beautiful to me personally. I know we don't talk much about personal stuff on the show, and I'm not going to get up on a world's smallest violin kick here, but as somebody who has struggled a lot myself with things like what they call imposter syndrome and feelings of self-worth, to see her be able to sort of square all of that away in her mind and sort of accept I don't want to say the evil side of her, because Madison, there's the first one. Madeline isn't evil, as we know. She was just controlled by Sinister, but the way that she sort of accepts that side of her mind that brings her sort of pain and that feeling of unsureness just really kind of stuck with me in this one. And as somebody who's been dealing with a lot of this stuff myself recently, I mean, we've talked about it in our private chats with Chris and stuff. It's just kind of a message that I really needed today. And the way that they handled the whole thing was beautifully, and the fact that they did it with my favorite character just really made it hit home more. So before we kind of get into the weeds of everything that happened in this episode, I just wanted to give that a minute and really highlight it, and just kind of give the writers of this show and everybody who worked on this in particular their flowers, I guess.
Well, how can you top that? So that's our episode
Yeah.
for.
See you next week for part 3, folks.
um, no, I mean, yeah, I mean, it kind of started with last week, right, when she had that conversation with Kurt,
Hmm.
where he's kind of telling her like, "Hey, you still felt these things, and
Hmm.
um, kind of was able to let her kind of put it behind her to the point of this episode, like you said, where she's like, I don't need to know. I'm,
Hmm.
like you said, we kind of fight together.
Hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't even say putting it behind her as much as it's just like
I meant
accepting
like
that.
her, yeah,
I
I
know
meant like
you
her
weren't.
worries about
The
what's real and what's not, right?
exactly. Yeah. But it was very much an acceptance of like, this is all part of me. Marvel Girl, Madeline, who I am now, the Phoenix, who I'd imagine we're going to see in the next episode. It's all Jean, and it's all what makes her her. And there's a lot of us out there who kind of can definitely resonate with that message of, the good, the bad, all of it. It's what makes you you. It's what makes you unique, even if it's not easy sometimes, and even if there are still those moments and days of struggles. It's all what makes you unique. So it just, yeah, it was very well done.
And also, why do people hate this suit of Marvel Girl? I never really got that. I always really like her wearing it, honestly, but I see a lot of hatred for it online.
I think it's just one of those things where it's because it's got such that like golden era of comics, or golden whatever the hell they call it. Like, it just very much screams like 80s comic book, and everybody's looking for, as much as they say they're not, everyone's looking for those more advanced, updated kind of suits like the ones we see today in the MCU specifically.
Uh oh. So you're telling me they want lines?
I was just going to say, and as we just saw in a certain DC release this week, people say they don't want the lines, but then Jean comes out in her Marvel Girl suit and everyone's having a conniption. You got to pick one side or the other. I'm sorry.
Oh my. Yeah, that episode is dropping very soon. We're recording tomorrow for Superman suit, me and Chris. So we will definitely dive into the overreactions, our underreactions, maybe, and
Movie dead. Sorry.
yeah,
Thumbs up.
sorry, yeah, the whole universe is dead. DCU dead
Yeah.
because it had lines and it bunches a little bit. Not allowed. But yeah, so we're gonna be talking. This is episode 9, Tolerance and Extinction Part 2, written by Anthony Sellitti. He wrote with Bo DeMeo the first part, and this one's directed by Emi-Emmett Yonemura. And the synopsis is: the X-Men work to settle the score before it's too late. It aired May 8th, 2024 on Disney Plus, and it has an IMDb rating currently of 9.6, which is higher than Part 1.
God.
So yeah. Real quick, as I like doing, running down the intro characters here. We got Cyclops, we got Jean
Got your
Grey,
moment,
we
finally.
got our moment of Storm with the black costume. That is awesome. Wolverine, Morph, Rogue, Beast, Nightcrawler, Professor X, and Jubilee was in there too. So no Magneto. We kind of know why now. And no Sunspot, no Bishop with their title cards. Bishop, of course, wasn't in the episode. He got referenced, though.
Mm-hmm. You owe me a
Uh,
soda, by the way. I told you Magneto was going to turn bad again in the finale.
yeah. Well, you know what? I'll send up this Funko Pop.
Yeah, there we go.
Um, okay, so this episode kind of opens up with Xavier and Cyclops talking, and I really like Jean Grey in this moment where she's like, "The world ends in like 12 hours, so make this quick,"
Yeah.
And Cyclops is like, "Really, Magneto?" I love that moment, and it's kind of what you would expect, I think, from Charles in this episode is he kind of has to go into a bit of apology tour
Mhm.
here of to each almost each mutant. Um, he goes to Cyclops, he goes to Jean Grey, he goes to the group, and then he also goes to Rogue
Rogue.
and speaks with Rogue. And then, of course, he also has to speak with Magneto later on. But yeah, so he gets this moment where he gets to kind of give his thoughts. And one of his thoughts was that we were kind of right on this. I think we mentioned this, that maybe he did this so that way Cyclops and Jean could leave.
Mhm.
So they could still leave and not feel bad about leaving because they're
Yeah.
not the leaders.
Mhm.
Cyclops brings up some very good points here too. Of like, hey, all of this stuff would have still happened to me, and
Yeah.
like Genosha would have still happened, and like I
Still
would
would have had to
put
send my
on the
kid
suit.
into the future and
Yeah, I'm still gonna be Cyclops. I'm still gonna come back and help when things are in trouble.
Mhm.
And I thought that was really great. I'm actually Team Cyclops here. I understand Professor X's thoughts, but really think it's naive to be like, well, let me give it over to Magneto. Now, in the original series, I think Magneto is really only the main villain in like 2 or 3 episodes. He's not like a constant
Mhm.
threat. So
They don't
maybe
give
he
him to you
thought,
often because they want his appearances to feel like a big deal when they do come around. So,
yes. And I think there was times too where like he was stuck in, I think, Savage Land with
mhm.
Xavier and stuff, and
Mhm.
where you kind of got their ideologies, right?
Easy
But
for
like
you to
you
say.
didn't, yeah, not easy, I guess. So they, so there was ways that they were in the show without them being like the main, without him being the main villain,
Mhm.
but still, it's like Charles. This is a guy who is ready to kill humans. He's really upset with humans all the time. And for a while, though, in Charles's defense, it did work. Right? It's not until the Genosha of it all happens that Magneto kind of becomes more radicalized again.
Mhm.
Um, when Charles leaves this to him, he's kind of like talking to the X-Men, like, "Hey, I am going to, because Charles is gone. I want to honor his thoughts, his ideas." And when he goes to Genosha and he sees how it's working out, he's almost kind of like, Charles was right.
Mhm.
But then we get the flip just minutes later of
The other shoe
Magneto was
drops.
right,
Yep.
right? And that is really what put the X-Men and Charles into this position now, which is going to have huge ramifications, um, especially when we get to the end of the episode. But I
Yeah.
guess your thoughts on Xavier and Cyclops and just their back and forth.
So I very much liked that Scott wasn't responsive, even going as far as to ignore his extending his hand for a handshake. Like, I'm glad that there's pushback on Charles. Like, so one thing that the movies did a lot, and it not so much in First Class, but definitely in the originals, I felt, and it sort of changed the public perception of what I always kind of viewed Charles to be. They made him much more of a a bastion of always being right and always making the right choices, and he's on, he is just always fighting for humanity, and he's always right and Magneto is always wrong. This show has done a really, really good job up to this point of sort of blurring those lines and making you feel what comic readers have felt for a long time with Charles, that he is deeply flawed. And even though his intentions are usually right, his methods and his sort of like moment to moment decision making is questionable at best, and very much at times just sort of clouded by his own I don't want to say his own ego, but I guess, yeah, kind of like ego hubris a little bit. So the fact that, he came back and everyone's not just buying into his, can't, Boy Scout kind of campy bullshit, I like it a lot. And I think it's a lot more um, realistic. It adds so many more layers of gray to this whole thing. And the fact that we literally went as far as to having members of the X-Men just straight up go against him and side with Magneto in the end, after he gives a hell of a speech, by the way, which we'll get into. I thought it was great. And I hope the only gripe that I had about it is that ultimately Magneto's plan from here is to just destroy the entire planet, which feels very like, now I'm going to destroy the whole planet. But everything up to now, they've done such a great job of making you feel like he is right. Like the whole thing is Magneto was right. And this is the first time that it feels kind of like, all right, well, I guess now we have to side with Charles because he's trying to destroy the whole planet. Like I feel like if Magneto's approach was more just like, no, we're not turning these Sentinels back. Look what they did to us, and we'll inhabit this Earth, and it'll be ours. Like I feel like at that point, I'd probably still be like, yeah, you know what? You probably deserve it after what they did to you. Like, I know I'm a human, but we kind of suck in this show and in real life. So, yeah.
I would just push back a little bit there because I don't, unless if I misread it, I don't think he's purposely killing the Earth. I think it's when he did the EMP, it is
Okay.
messing with the poles enough that like they only have a few hours to reverse it. And
Okay.
his point is kind of like, I'm not gonna reverse it, because, which I could totally see him kind of being able to draw that line of actually
Mhm.
no, we'll just ride up on asteroid M and whatever. Like I don't think he's going to, because that's where I think the time countdown is coming from.
Yeah.
I think it's coming from the poles being affected magnetically that maybe is causing some issues there.
It's more it's
So
more
I
of a byproduct as opposed to his intent in the situation.
Yes, and he's just like, I'm not gonna fix it. It's kind of
Yeah.
like when Batman's like, I don't have to kill you, but I don't have to save you, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna kill you, I'm not gonna save you, but
Yeah.
that he does in Batman Begins. So I don't know. That's what I got from it because unless if he's gonna drop this asteroid on the Earth, I don't know like where else the countdown timer is coming from. But it's an interesting dilemma that they face, right? And I agree. I do like that people are not just blindly following Charles, but I like how Cyclops has done it the best.
Mhm.
Unlike Rogue and Sunspot, where
Until
they
the end, at
will,
least.
yeah, I'll have thoughts on that. But I do think with with Sunspot and Rogue, how they go to the other side, right? And you can see how Rogue would be doing that. You can also see how Sunspot would be doing that. But what I like about Cyclops is he disagrees with Charles, but he still knows the right thing to do.
Mhm.
Is we have to stop Magneto,
Mhm.
right? And he's like, I'm not going to shake your hand, Charles, but look, I know we're kind of screwed and we have to stop the Earth from
Business
dying,
is
right? Like,
business. Yeah.
yes, exactly. So that's what I really appreciate about Cyclops and why I think what some people have been reading into the end is incorrect. I think there's a few stuff that I've read afterwards that we'll get to when we get to that part of the episode, but um, yeah, so I really like how he was able to kind of, like I said, just blow past him, but also like we still need to kind of stop Magneto, right? Like, because one thing I really like about I read something from Bo DeMeo that was I think from a few years ago or earlier this year before the show launched, where he said his least favorite part of the X-Men comics and stuff is when Cyclops does go more
Like edgy.
pro more edgy pro Magneto
Mhm.
like type of thing. And I know we had thought about that maybe throughout the first few episodes of okay, maybe he's going to buy in, maybe he'll like this. But I think this episode has really shown like he still has that line in the sand of I got to I got to do the right thing. And I like that because while I think he is like he's the main leader of the team. And one thing I also really like in this episode is that we get blue and gold team, right? That was
Yes.
something we predicted for season 2 and it comes in this episode. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I totally like popped. I was like, when
Yeah.
they did that. It's the Leo DiCaprio meme. I guess we should just probably kind of naturally flow into where you were going to go with that in the ending and
Yeah,
stuff
sure.
now because it just feels like a good spot to. I know we're going to be jumping around, but we always do. Anybody who listens to this show, it's par for the course. So I'm with you in terms of like it was good to see him in that sort of I don't want to say last moment, but the deciding moment where everybody kind of, flags were planted and everybody had to pick a side that he ultimately knew the right side, the side that didn't destroy the planet with electromagnetic pulse. But we see that moment at the end where Xavier is trying to like sort of I don't even mind mold. I don't even know what exactly you would like to call it.
Yeah, he's gonna try to hijack Magneto's mind and
Mhm.
make him reverse it, but then that would bring the Sentinels back online, right?
Yeah,
So that is that was the plan, and the plan was to have Gold Team turn off the Sentinels by
yeah,
stopping Bastion
hmm
before he does this. Yeah.
yeah. So when we see him shoot at Xavier's chair and kind of break his concentration, must have not passed the saving throw on that one for our D&D fans out there. But I almost feel like that was Scott's like final turning point moment of like, nope, we're not doing this. But especially after seeing like he goes in like a 3-second span, he has this vision of Jean and what he believes is Nathan killing her, and then he stops Xavier, and then stopping Xavier indirectly ends up getting all of the adamantium ripped out of Wolverine's body. So like that, I can't imagine that like emotional jumble of like two moments that close together. But I feel like this is just going to embolden that resentment towards Charles even more at this point, personally.
I mean, it could. I think where I was reading is people saying that that he was lying to Charles when he says Gold Team needs
Oh,
more time, and I'm like, no, they do. He saw that. He
yeah.
saw that Jean and them have not done the deed yet, and I
Mhm.
do think his intentions were pure here. Of Gold Team needs more time because I think Cyclops is actually the only one with the right head on
Mhm.
in this moment here because Charles is jumping the gun here to be like, you know what? And even because Cyclops is like, hey, we don't know if they've even like they haven't stopped the Sentinels yet,
Mhm.
right? And he's like, at this point, we're running out of time, we're running out of options, is what Charles says, and just kind of ends up putting his plan into effect. And again, if you think about it, and if he does reverse it and they haven't turned off the Sentinels, the Prime Sentinels are reactivated.
They are all dead essentially in that moment.
Yes, and the only way that they know how to stop him is through Magneto doing what he did, right?
Mhm.
So at this point, you're really playing with fire, and um I think Cyclops knew that. And as much as it hurt probably to see whatever happened to Jean, I'm sure he thinks that maybe there's still hope there. But
He's seen that girl come back to life so many
yes,
times. He's like, what did
that's
what
what
was it?
Rogue says.
Oh
She's
yeah,
like, been
Rogue
there,
said
done that.
it.
Cyclops is like, yeah, that's Wednesday for me, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I consider that my vacation when she kind of,
got the house to myself.
kick the feet up. Oh yeah. But
But
no,
yeah,
I oh no.
when you have that moment, and he has to, like, I saw so many people say that he turned on Charles here, and I don't think that's true. I think he is the only one with his head straight on, saying we cannot pull that trigger yet because if we do,
Mhm.
everybody's dead, not just the mutants. But I mean, like most of those Sentinels were humans. I mean, they're not going to have a real life, right? That's what we kind of talked about last week.
Mhm. Yes, but also at the same time, like, so obviously that was. I feel like he's going to see that as just Xavier was being reckless again, and now because Xavier was being reckless again, Wolverine is medalless, which is going to be a whole other cool thing that we'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, I just first of all, to the point you were saying before, I think it's ridiculous for anybody to say he was lying or just kind
Mm-hmm.
of coming up with a fake reason to try to get to Charles. That's anybody who's read Scott Summers ever knows that like that's just not him fundamentally as a character. He is not a liar. He's not, he's had times where he's kind of strayed off the path a little bit, but the iteration of the character that we see right now, he's still on the sort of what's the
Definitely
word?
the good guy, like he says in
Yeah,
the first episode.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he's very stands firmly on his morals and things like that. So definitely with you on not thinking that he was lying, but I think so he thought the decision to give Magneto the school was a reckless one.
Yes.
Even despite Charles explaining why, it was kind of a half-assed explanation, if you ask me. And
It was.
then to have this happen when the guy's been back on Earth for like 2 days, he goes and makes this
Not
decision.
even.
Yeah,
He's been on Earth for like an hour or
yeah,
2
yeah.
hours, you know?
Feels like it, yeah. So like he comes back after all this stuff has happened to the mutants, Genosha, all of this, the Prime Sentinels coming to life, all these human lives that are now gone, and Charles was going to essentially ruin any chance they had of making it better, just because of this preconceived notion he has that Magneto's wrong and I'm right and I'm righteous and he's evil. Like it's just one of those things that felt to me like very much a tipping point moment for Scott.
No, I agree with that. I think that you can have some very good friction between them next week. You can have it
Mm-hmm.
into season 2 of, this thought of, uh, maybe you should go back to the Shi'ar Empire. I'll continue leading this team because I'm better at it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I could totally see him being in that camp of, we can't blindly follow you all the time, Charles, because you almost just caused our whole plan to go wrong by doing this step too early.
yeah.
We needed Magneto at this moment still to have this EMP and have all the stuff down because we need those Sentinels offline first.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw, he can't say it right away, right? But like
Yeah,
he saw in his mind, he saw Jean and Nathan battling, and he knows this stuff's not done yet. Like Gold Team still needs like another 30 minutes before we can
yeah.
pull this trigger. Um, and yeah, I could see that causing some big friction down the line here, especially because I do wonder, who does Wolverine blame, if
Yeah.
he blames anybody. Like, does he blame Scott for stopping it, or does he blame does he blame Charles for
Charles.
maybe this plan going off wrong, or does he blame Magneto the most?
I think he's going to end up blaming Scott just because they've laid so much foundation already for the friction between those two. And ultimately, even before this, Wolverine was very pro Xavier's side. Like, just, oh, we got to stop him once and for all, kind of very much in lockstep with Charles's way of thinking. So I think the way that he will see it is like, oh, we had Magneto dead to rights, and then you had to go and do this and stop Charles, and now look at me, Mr. Bone Claw Man, which is going to be really awesome to see, by the way, if they go the comic route and sort of make him. So in the comics, for those who don't know, after this
Fatal
exact same,
attractions, yeah.
yes, the exact same thing happens. Like that shot we saw at the end of the episode with the adamantium coming out of Wolverine's body and he's like upside down, beat for beat, the one of the most iconic X-Men comic panels of all time. What comes from that is that after Wolverine like loses the adamantium in his body, it's discovered, the way that I kind of took it was that it's discovered that the adamantium was essentially holding back his mutation in a way into being more of a like feral, animalistic, like actual Wolverine character. And when he loses that adamantium in his body, the mutation continues to progress and he reaches the point where he's essentially a wild animal. Like even like he kind of looks, the design reminds me of Beast almost, if Beast were Wolverine and a dude. Like he's got that big brutish kind of, the gorilla shoulders kind of look to him. And it's a
I
really
also heard it. I also heard it like ups his healing factor faster too, or
mm-hmm.
something. With
Yeah,
getting it out of him.
something like that. Yeah, I don't remember all of the specific details, just kind of the beats of the story. But yeah, it's really cool, and he's obviously going to end up getting it back at some point. But I kind of want them to draw that journey out a little bit. Don't make it a thing where at the end of next week's episode he gets his powers back. Like don't I mean, I don't want to say don't be repetitive from the Storm stuff, because like ultimately that did take place over 2-3 episodes, but it was like 2-3 half episodes, so it wasn't something that got a ton of time in the season as compared to some of the other storylines. So I would like them to like draw that out, make it a whole thing for Logan next season, to where when he does get his adamantium back, maybe from Apocalypse, if they go the more classic route, but they've shown in this show that they're not opposed to switching things up. That it means something when he gets it back. It's not just like, oh well, we took his powers because it was cool to give you one of the iconic comic panels in the end of the episode, but now we got to kind of reverse course and give him his powers back. Like no, like build on that a little more. Do more of what they did with Storm, and like flesh out that sort of coming to terms of like what's me, what's the hero, like him having to basically find himself again.
Yeah, I hope they don't do the whole like feral Wolverine thing. I think that there's good stuff that can be had with Bone
Mm-hmm.
Claw though, like
Yep.
with the Bone Claws instead.
Mm-hmm.
Um the it'll be interesting. I actually just saw this weekend during I think it was either Thursday after we record it or Saturday on Free Comic Book Day. But I went to my comic book shop both days, so I don't know. But I went there, and they had a Funko Pop of Fatal Attractions Wolverine with him. Like you see the adamantium coming out of him and stuff. It was really cool.
That's awesome.
I'm guessing they may have put that out recently
Yeah,
for a certain reason here.
You gotta start asking them questions. They getting screeners in advance? Come on, no.
But yeah, so that was really cool, and we'll see how it goes. I do think that there'd probably be a longer storyline, like a season 2 thing, where maybe by the finale of season 2 he would be back to the adamantium claws, and I don't know. It'll be interesting though if like next week in the opening thing he's like got just the bone claws and not the adamantium like in his intro.
Yeah, right to it. I don't know. I will say, so another thing that we've and not just we, this has been a very popular thing on the internet about Onslaught sort of being brought into this at some point. This whole, basically what Charles was attempting to do to Magneto is basically in the comics what kicks off the manifestation of Onslaught. So originally we thought maybe it was going to be Bastion who sort of his plan was to capture Charles and Magneto, and for all we know that may still be true, although it's not I'm not really sure how he would know that, like, oh, if I get the mind of Charles and the worst parts of the mind of Magneto and I combine them together, I can create this all-powerful entity. Like, I don't know where he would know that from, but they dropped a crumb with Charles trying to do that to Magneto this week. So it seems past the point of just Easter egg with us getting Onslaught at some point, and it's starting to teeter into foreshadowing territory. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's I haven't read Onslaught. I know that comes after Fatal Attractions, but wasn't there something that people said was Onslaught-ish earlier in the show, or maybe it was because the Bastion stuff takes place after Onslaught in the comics, I think is what it is. They're kind of playing fast and loose with time and what they're adapting.
Well, there was the shot of Bastion. Remember, he has Magneto tied up, and he's got the screen of Charles where he's watching him, like the. So basically, people were just kind of inferring from that. He's like, oh, why would he? He's got his eye on Charles. He's already got Magneto. What would capturing both of them together, like where could that go comic wise? And while that's not the way it happens in the comics, like we said, they've shown that they're willing to mix and match aspects of certain runs and tie them together. So it was a feasible thought, but now it's, like I said, now this is like the second or third sort of connective tissue moment towards Onslaught that I'd imagine is going to culminate with us seeing him. I'm going to say season 2. I don't think it'll be as quick as next week. That's way too much to grind out in 1.5 hour episode.
Yeah, it seems like they still got a lot of work against Bastion and Magneto this week. What did we make of? I really like the background of Bastion here, where they learn that he talks to machines. Like he is the central location that Beast was trying to track, and that Xavier had actually visited him all those years ago because he thought he was a mutant. And Storm even says like, "Hey, in a different world, maybe he's in that photo, on
The
the wall there." They're
OG.
talking
Yeah.
about the original X-Men. Just thought that was really cool, just seeing how like things could have been different, maybe, right? Like his mom is the one that shut the door in Xavier's face there, as he says. But
Yeah.
just thought that was cool.
Very Joker-esque, one bad day, as they like to say. Um, yeah, it was interesting. I also thought it was interesting in the beginning with Bastion, how there's that shot of him, very kind of chilling, by the way. He's walking through the street and he's carrying his mother while all of the other like Prime Sentinels are just frozen there. And like he sheds a tear, but like in my mind, I'm like, did you have to turn your mom? Like you had all these other Sentinels, and it like why'd you turn your mom if you love her and you're so upset now that she's been like turned off? Like was that one extra Prime Sentinel the difference? Like that one kind of threw me off a little bit.
I think maybe it's a way to keep her alive, right? Getting
Oh,
up there in age, maybe.
oh.
Maybe she wanted to. I don't know. Like maybe it's a way of like, oh, I'll always have my mom with me because like
Yeah,
she'll when she turns into Prime Sentinel, she'll be
like X-Men
good.
Norman Bates, basically.
Yes,
Like,
yeah. He's yeah, he's dressed up as her in the at the
I will
top.
turn you into a Sentinel, mother. That's a good. I didn't. Yeah, I didn't even think of that though. It kind of tracks, like, or it trasks, I should say. But no, yeah, you're right. That would make sense. It was kind of his way of making sure that like she would always be around, and I hope that's the route they go because it'll help to sort of humanize him a little more and
Yeah,
give us more of a an insight into his motivation as opposed to just I'm a baddie and I'm a amalgamation of
I'm
Nimrod
so
and
bad.
yeah,
I made my mom a Prime Sentinel. No,
yeah,
I think
yeah,
it was like oh, this will keep her around forever.
yeah. So that would be
Um,
cool if that was the way they went. That would
yeah,
I will if that's the way they go, I'll give you your flowers on that one. That was a good
yeah.
pull.
I don't know if they'll ever say, right? Like, but that's
Mm,
that's how I read it.
mm.
If he wasn't walking through sad with her, then maybe it'd be like, all right, he's
Yeah,
just a jerk.
yeah.
But yeah, we even see Trish, very uh short amount. Trish Tilby, Beast is watching over her as she's in the hospital bed. So it does seem like these people can come back once they take out Bastion and they reverse the magnetic stuff. Everybody could probably go back because they said it was like to just remove the Sentinel stuff with Bastion still being alive. They said it would take like 3 years or
Mhm.
a long time,
Yeah.
and they don't have that time.
No.
So that's I think by the end of this season, or yeah, I'll say by the end of the season that all these people are kind of back and
Oh yeah.
alive.
Oh yeah.
I do think we get a cliffhanger next week, but I don't think it's like all of this is unresolved. I do think there will be most of it resolved next week. Because this week, while we made some progress, Magneto's still a problem, and so is Bastion. So those two need to get sorted in the 35 minutes. I think the longest one has been 35 minutes, and I think they probably need all of those minutes next week.
Yeah. This finale is a three-parter, obviously, and there is a moment. It was when they were trying to get the collar on Bastion and they fail, and he grabs it. I was like, okay, this is Empire Strikes Back. This is the Empire Strikes Back of this three-part finale. And then the literal next scene is Forge in the plane, and he's just like, "Wahoo!" I was like, okay, it is Star Wars. And so like,
Yeah,
it was just it was kind of cool to it was kind of a funny little moment there.
yeah, I'm sure Forge is alive.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
They kind of leave it like, oh no, him and Storm
Yeah,
got hit. But
yeah,
I'm sure they'll be fine.
yeah. Between him and Jean, they gave us a few death fake outs this episode, and Wolverine. Even though like we comic people know, but for those who don't, they're like, what the hell? Like, how does Wolverine exist after this? Survive? You know what I mean? Without the
Yeah,
adamantium.
healing
Yeah.
factor.
Also, I know we talked about this in the last episode, but I feel like it's even more poignant now, dude. Where are the Avengers? Like, we know that Thor exists in this world. We know that Doctor
Yeah.
Strange exists in this world. We now know that Hulk exists in this world. Awesome moment, by the way.
Yeah, Morph Smash.
Oh, so cool with the theme song playing, just like oof, chills. We know that Cap exists. We know that Spider-Man exists. Where the F? I mean, dude, I understand
Cap is still looking for a shield. He's out there
yeah,
like, where the hell did this go?
digging through the snow. Yeah. Oh, this one's yellow. No. But like up until now, you can at least sort of suspend your disbelief and do the they're off world. They're facing another threat, yada yada, this and that. I mean, this is all of the power in the world is off. Nuclear reactors are about to explode. Like this is doomsday. Where the hell? These are the worst. Like of all the variants in the MCU, this has got to be like the laziest event. They're off eating shawarma in the post credit scene of Avengers somewhere apparently because they are nowhere to be found.
But they do that before the final battle in this universe.
Yeah,
like, we can't fight on.
Or even during. They're like,
yeah,
whatever. But it's just
people talk about Superman putting his boots on.
With the boots.
Where are these guys? No, I actually don't have a problem with this. I would assume Iron Man is kind of out of commission right now.
Yeah. He's just like floating, like
yeah, he's like, oh crap. But what I would think for the others is that they're just they're helping more. Like Spider-Man's, we saw him last week when this happened. He's probably helping people in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Hulk, I mean, I don't know what else he can really do. I would assume he's helping people in his area. I like not all of them have like the super fast jets, and even if they did, they might be out of commission. The only reason these are working are because they're Shi'ar tech is why they go to Muir Island, and why they get their old suits and their old tech is because it's stuff that's not affected. So I would assume they're kind of stuck wherever they are.
Mm-hmm.
I saw some people say, well, the Avengers don't exist in this universe as a team, but then some people said Spider-Man season 1, they mentioned the Avengers. So it's kind of conflicting. I know Cap mentioned a different team he had in the, I think, original series, so he may not actually be an Avenger, but I would think Iron Man is just out of luck with the EMP.
Yeah.
The shrapnel's probably reaching his heart soon. They got to turn that back on so he doesn't die.
Yeah. That would be so it wouldn't be funny, but like they just pan to a shot next week of fucking Iron Man just on the ground like all dead.
They're like burying him after
yeah.
Thor would probably be the only one I'd be like, what? Because he could fly. Thor would be the only one I'd really.
I guess with Carol's kind
of.
Well,
Carol, we don't know what she's doing since she got healed, but
yeah. But I guess I say all that to say, like, I feel like we also got the prospects strengthened in this episode of a future Avengers versus X-Men adaptation in this show, just because like we're gonna reach a point eventually where it cannot be denied anymore that the other heroes in this universe would have a problem with the destruction being caused by the mutants, whether it's by Magneto and the X-Men can't be blamed, or whether it's just kind of fallout from the X-Men kind of doing what they have to do to stop Magneto. It feels like somebody's going to have to step in and be like, enough, besides from just the government and creating Sentinels again,
Yeah.
So we'll see.
That would be cool.
Yeah, we'll see. But just something I wanted to bring up again.
Yeah, so a lot of talk about that. I actually saw somebody post that on the subreddit, and I was like, "Is this Ron?"
Yeah,
talking about the Avengers stuff because it was talking about it last
17
week.
17 different Reddit accounts. Try to find them all.
And we're talking about it now too. Okay, I wanted to quickly talk about who's on whose team here. I like this blue team. We had Cyclops, Wolverine, Professor X, Nightcrawler, Jubilee, and Rogue. Rogue was Cyclops does say, "Rogue, you're coming with me." That's before she leaves. It's before she ditches. So I assume Sunspot would have been going with either Jubilee or would be on Gold Team, which was Jean Grey, Cable, Storm, Forge, Morph, and Beast.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the great line too between Jean and Storm of make them mind your weather and then weather your mind. I really like the play
Hell
on words
yeah.
there.
That was the quote, man. It's kind of become the running thing on this show of every episode we talk about. There's that one line that just really sticks out. There's actually a couple of them in this episode. That was one. And also when Magneto is sort of talking to all of them and pleading his case. And what does he say? How many more of your bones will have to pave the road towards Charles's future? It's just like, oh man, this guy is Shakespearean, like legit. That whole
I liked his he also had a great line of the
about
offer
Leech.
was made,
Oh,
the door is open,
mm-hmm.
and it's like you know, kind of like, hey, I made the offer to you before everything goes down. And the door's still open.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to join me, I'm not going to cut you off right now,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but he did have a great line about Leech too, and
Yeah.
why that has radicalized him.
Oof. It was tough, man. Also, in that moment, when Rogue, so we see Rogue wearing Remy's coat when she's talking to Charles, in the way that she gives
Yeah.
it back to him before she, just the symbolism there. It was just chilling stuff, man. There's no wasted movement in this show. You know what I mean? Everything means something, down to taking a coat off and putting it on a chair as you're going to another side. It was really cool.
I really like the way that they used the old costumes too. Like they had to go to that place
Mm-hmm.
because like their home was destroyed. So they go to their backup facility and guess what? There's their original suits.
The
And
old
it's
suits,
like,
yeah.
all right, let's put it on, right? Like their other suits were kind of damaged and at times destroyed, so it
Mm-hmm.
made sense. Some people thought like because I know Bo DeMeo came out and said it was going to be a story reason, and that
Mm-hmm.
was the reason, right? But some people were like, "What was the story reason?" Because it seems like just a cameo, gratuitous thing. Blah 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 blah. People can't have fun. I hate it so much now.
So
But
annoying.
this is a way to do it. It's not just like, oh, he has a new suit. It's all right. We got to regroup. We're back at the old facility.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get our suits that we have and go out there.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what they probably meant by those rumors of they get new costumes. It was
Yeah.
probably this.
Well, you know what else it does? It also kind of, at least to me, and I don't know if this was the intention, but it gives you the feeling of like, oh boy, they got to go back to old stuff. They might be, a little outgunned in this fight. Like they're using their old tech.
Mm.
They're not quite as advanced as they were. So it kind of felt like, in addition to being a cool, like little, nostalgia pop for all of us old fans, it also kind of served the double purpose of like, oh boy, these are their, they couldn't even beat all, Bastion and all the Sentinels in their most advanced suits that they had to offer. Now they got to, I know we were talking about the Marvel Girl suit before and how much we love it, but now Jean's got to wear a dress and a mask with the ears. Like it just, in my mind, that was kind of the feeling that I got from it.
So this is a clip I could not stay away from. You know how like they always drop a clip
Yeah.
the day before?
So
I watched
stupid.
this one.
Me
All right, I
too.
watched this one because I saw that like it starts off with the suits, and I'm like, all right, I gotta watch
Yeah.
this, right? And
The
it's
dark side
it's,
temptation.
it's overlapping Charles talking to President Kelly. And I actually had a really cool theory with this, and maybe this is part of it too. I don't know, but like how I was reading it before the episode, he's talking to President Kelly, and he says, like, if you don't trust me, at least trust my X-Men, right? My X-Men have always been there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what better way to show that than them putting on their original costumes for when they first revealed themselves to the world? And there was maybe that optimism about the X-Men revealing themselves to the world. And I'm like, they're back in their old gear. Maybe people will see that and be like, those are the X-Men I know.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of rally behind them a bit. It didn't happen that way, but that's kind of what I was thinking at a certain point.
So you mean to tell me that human beings are more prone to accepting nostalgia than new things? That seems a little off base, Jordan. I don't know. No,
I have a real anecdote for this, by the way. Is
okay.
just think of your sports teams,
Mm-hmm.
right? In 2012, the Orioles went back to the cartoon bird because that was the bird that was the winning team
Mhm.
back in the 60s to the 80s. Nostalgia as well. People at that age were like, "Oh, like I would love if we get the cartoon bird back, right?"
Mhm. Those are my O's.
Yeah, how about that, hon? Right? Like,
Yeah.
and then you get nowadays, I see people that were growing up maybe younger than me, or a little younger than me, or around my age. They're like, no, they should bring back the ornithological bird, the
You're
correct
taking my
bird.
role today.
I know I can't do it, but they're like, no, we should go back to the bird from like 2008 because that's what I grew up with. And I'm like, we sucked during those years. Why would we ever want to wear those again? But like in that instance, it's those people saying that's what they wore when I grew up, and
Yep.
that's what I could see like these people of Earth being like, ah, I remember when the X-Men first revealed themselves and they were wearing that stuff, and it makes me trust them again. These are the people that remember when they saved blank blank blank
Mhm.
the first year they revealed themselves.
Yeah.
There you go. Like that's what it could be too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great theory that I hadn't even thought of, but it makes a lot of sense. It's we see it in all sports today. Everybody loves the throwback jerseys. It's even kind of the Star Wars theory a little bit. You know, everyone's favorite trilogy is the one that they came up with as kids,
Yep.
for better or worse, and worse in a lot of cases with our family. But yeah, it's very much a pull for people. It makes people feel safe and familiar. So that's a great sort of double double purpose thing there that I think you probably nailed on the head, if I'm being honest with you. I don't think they'll ever come out and say it, but like
Yeah.
for those who know and those who pick it up, it's a hell of a double entendre for sure.
How about Magneto's throne on Asteroid M here? It's made out of Sentinel parts. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Hell yeah. Loved it. Very good.
uh, oh, what I really like too is Morph acting like Mr. Sinister to try to get Bastion
Yeah.
to fall for this and put the collar on, and Bastion's like, "Hey, Sinister wouldn't have done that," you
Yeah.
know. Like that's a he's not
You
very
believe
selfish.
me? You expect me to believe that Sinister cares for anybody but himself? Get
Yes,
out of here.
and
I
you
was fooled for
mentioned,
a second though, because they cut it
yeah, me
very
too.
strategically to where in one scene Jean's just pelting him with bowling balls, and then that's the next thing that we get.
And you mentioned it earlier with the um with them trying to put the collar on him and how it felt like Empire Strikes Back. I kind of got the Infinity War vibe of them trying to
Yeah,
take the thing off of Thanos. You know, they're
yeah.
like, "No, we almost got it." Um, kind of similar with Magneto in that in that respect too. But yeah, so this episode ends with Wolverine stabbing Magneto. He mentions the brave are the first to die, which I think somebody pointed out. Magneto says that to him in one of the first episodes of the
hmm
animated series.
hmm
And so a little bit of payback here. Bo DeMeo points out that it's actually him telling Magneto as well that he kind of did the right thing.
hmm
You were brave to do all this, but guess what? You got to go.
Yeah.
you know, and, but at this point, do we think Magneto is actually like is he going to die from this? Because he was stabbed pretty good. He's got blood coming out of his mouth, and he could it be like his last act is to rip this out, or is there still more to come with Magneto?
Most definitely, still more to come. Um, what I'm hoping is that like maybe this moment of him like being so close to death, very much in the way it happened with Emma, triggers like a secondary mutation to where not to where he's got a different power, but to where maybe it emboldens his mutation even a little more, and that's what allowed him to sort of pull the adamantium out of Wolverine's body. And at the same time, maybe he does some crazy stuff where like the copper in the blood or something like that, and he like pushes his own blood back into his body. Like something cool like that would be awesome. But no, I definitely don't think Magneto is going to be dead. I don't think he's going to die at all in this show, to be honest with you. After we already got the death fake out, obviously, and remember it. So I feel like at this point he's probably going to be here to stay as maybe a bit more of a mainstay kind of villain than we got used to in the original series. As we mentioned, he was around a lot, but was only really the focal point villain of a few key, important episodes. I think we'll probably get less of that, and he'll be more of that sort of always looming threat, maybe working with other villains, things like that. But yeah, he tried Charles's way, it didn't work. Now he's doing it his way, and I feel like we need more ramp for that. 2 episodes of Magneto being the true villain isn't enough for me.
How do they reverse this? How do they stop Magneto? Right? Because they almost had it. Now Charles is stuck with the helmet on. Did him pulling the adamantium coming out of Wolverine, did that give Charles enough time to get that helmet off, or is it can Magneto multitask like that? Like, how, if you are Charles and Cyclops and all this, how are you approaching one of our best fighters is down for the count? How do we do this now?
Well, if I was able to come up with a foolproof plan for this, I would be the leader of the X-Men, but I'm not. So I don't know if I'll be able to. But part of me almost wonders, like, I don't even really think the fight is going to continue in that moment. I think maybe
He will be probably too injured, right? So I guess
yeah.
maybe he will have to like be down for the count for a little bit.
Yeah. And like maybe he'll now I don't want to I was going to say like maybe him and Charles will be able to come to some common ground, but that would almost feel a little too hokey at this point considering how dug in both of them are in their 2 points to have them, look Magnus, look what you've done. And he's like, "You are right, Charles." Like that would feel way too hokey for me to wrap up what's been a very grounded, which is ironic to say in a show that's been anything but on the ground, it feels like, but a very grounded and realistic story. I don't want it to end on a classic superhero trope. You know what I mean? Which
Yeah, it's
again,
interesting.
which would also tie in, like, I don't want to see it as simple as, okay, they reverse everything that Magneto did and that Bastion did, and it's all smiley day, and, like, again, just the tropes. I want this season of this show, which has made such an impact, more than they probably even thought it was going to. I want the ramifications of it to be long term. I want Gambit to be gone for a long time. I want everything Magneto's doing Earth right now to Earth right now to have long term ramifications, to not just be undone in the snap of a finger in one episode.
Yeah, because there's the theory going around too that the way Logan gets his adamantium back in the comics is becoming one of the horsemen
Horseman of
for
Apocalypse.
Apocalypse.
Yeah.
That's also a way that they could bring back Remy. I kind of don't, as much as I love Gambit, I kind of just don't want that undone.
Yeah.
I think one of the worst things in comics is when there are no stakes because everybody can come back.
Mm-hmm.
I was just reading a review about Blood Hunt, and early on in this book, so many people die,
Mm-hmm.
and to the point where you're like, well, they're going to reverse that because
Yeah.
there's no way like Thor is dying, right? Like,
Yeah.
um,
They killed Miss Marvel for like what, a month and a half.
yeah,
They
yeah.
made her a mutant. Like, yeah.
So that's like my biggest issue with comics, and I know a lot of times when it comes to MCU as well, when people are like, well, I want it to be our Iron Man that comes back, and I'm like, why? Like that just totally undoes it, and I do think that loses the casuals. They'll be like, wait, like as much as they want him back, if they bring him back and it is the same Iron Man,
Mm-hmm.
and he just reverses his death, people won't stand for that. They won't. They'll be like, what? And the people will be like, well, that's how it happens in the comics. And I'll be
Yeah,
like,
they're
yeah,
like,
well,
okay, I don't read
most
comics.
people don't read comics. Exactly. And that's what they would say. They'd be like, that's the reason I don't read them,
Yeah.
Jim. And you're like, well, okay. So I
And,
would hope
and by the
that
way,
like
they'd
Remy's
be
done.
1000% right, because they invested all this time and all of this
Yes.
money going to see these movies just to essentially be told a few years later that none of it really mattered, actually.
Yeah, we reversed it.
Yeah. We
It's a
reversed it.
staple. It's a
We're
staple in
sorry.
comics.
We're sorry. Yeah.
Like, imagine if somehow Palpatine returned. Okay.
Exactly. Could you imagine how people would freak out? Just crazy.
uh, yeah. So that actually, like, more like, think about if somehow Vader returned. That would really throw a wrench in it because you'd be like, well, he sacrificed himself for his son, and now he's back and he's evil again. Like, I don't understand what we're doing here. That's pretty much what comics do all the time. And
Mhm.
yes, it would totally lose casual people. So I kind of hope that they do keep Remy dead. I think that's what their plan would be when he's like, "Hey, time travel is not going to fix this."
Yeah.
It's like we're not just going to reverse this stuff.
Mhm.
This
And
will
we
have
know that,
actual lasting impact.
yeah. And we know that Bo DeMeo wrote season 2 as well. So obviously everything past next season is out of his control, but we know we've at least got that cohesiveness all the way through a whole nother season of this show, which is very
And
promising.
I'm sure these directors and these writers that wrote with him are probably still on season 3 if they
Yeah,
do it right.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, for sure.
why would you look? I know we don't know what he did. Um, but I would think after Disney and Marvel watched this, that what he had to do would have been bad enough to be like, I know the show's great, but we can't continue with this guy.
Yeah,
But I'm sure that the other workers on the show are going to continue working on the show.
I agree.
Where it would become a problem is if he was let go for something stupid and all these people say, I'm not working with you either. Then
Yeah,
that's where maybe Marvel's like, oh, maybe we should reverse this. But, I think we just kind of have to take it at its word,
mhm.
at this point. And uh, hopefully season 2 is really great. And then hopefully whatever they do after that, they find they're able to keep a lot of the same core people together and keep doing what they're doing because what this show is really great. And this one wasn't even written by Bo DeMeo. So it
Yeah,
can show you other writers can, handle these characters with care and these great moments like the what you expect black leather,
yeah,
those type of lines, a little dig at Fox there.
loved it.
Yeah, that
Or
was
like
great.
well, how the turntables moment going back to
Yes.
the, what'd you expect? Yellow spandex? It's like, well, what have
Yes.
we here? Yeah. No, I agree with you completely. As long as they've got uh source material fans, comic book fans running the show, which it seems that they do, I'm good. And in Feige, we trust. So
All right. So next week, this synopsis for part 3, X-Men's dreams are put to the test as mutant human relations reach a tipping point. Kind of feels
very
like we're already there.
yeah, very yeah. The point has been tipped. Yeah. No, yeah, it's we knew they weren't going to give us much. This synopsis has been out for a few weeks now, obviously. So there's not really much to garner from it. Honestly, it's just one of those things. The table's been set, and just got to get ready for that one last one. Very bittersweet as we kind of wrap up our
I
penultimate
know.
episode of our coverage here. I'm so bummed.
I know. I'm like, dang, this went by so fast. X-Men 97, one episode left.
It's an era,
Uh
man.
Crazy. Hopefully season 2 is not 2 years away.
Mm,
That's what I would say. I can go a year and a half if I need to, but let's not go 2, please.
I can't.
All of these shows on all of these streaming services need to figure out how to turn episodes around so much faster. I'm actually really amazed, Ron, that like, okay, we have so many TV shows. This is my biggest complaint with streaming, right? That have these insane budgets for whatever reason. I'm not even talking like the Star Wars, the Marvel. I'm talking like
Like The
Space
Witcher.
Force
Yeah.
on Netflix,
Yeah.
right? A comedy where they're like, let's load up the cast and
Mhm.
give them bunches of money. And then they're like, well, we're doing 6 episodes.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? How many? 6?
They just
All
announced
right.
the new Game of Thrones spinoff. Same thing. Hedge Knight, I think it's called something like that. Same thing. 6 episodes. Like it doesn't work, man. Especially when you got a little more leeway when you get legit hour episodes. But when you're
Yes,
doing
yeah.
30, 40-minute episodes, no, you don't have enough time to tell a story. It's different than movies. It just is.
Yeah, and even like comedy shows that come out and they have 6 to 10 episodes, and you're like, we used to get 22 of these.
Yeah. You don't even have time to like fall in love with the characters.
Right. I mean, most people's complaint about The Office was the first season, which was 6 episodes.
Yeah.
Do you understand what the issue is now? Right? Like,
Yeah.
it has a long time to find itself, and then the issue becomes, well, if it wasn't popular, we cancel it after one season,
Yeah.
right? Because whatever. My big thing with like streaming services, why is like Disney Plus or any of these places not been like, okay, we're gonna take regular normal TV budgets and do streaming shows? Like, how is nobody putting together a How I Met Your Mother or a, I mean, they tried to with How I Met Your Father, I guess, but like, how are they not doing like, they just announced The Office is getting a reboot,
Mhm.
sequel, not really a reboot, a sequel, a spin-off, whatever you want to call it, takes place in a newspaper. Great, it's going to Peacock. Better have more than 6 episodes, I'll tell you that much. Like, do a normal, like, you were able to churn out 22 episodes of The Office every year and then take a 2-month break and then be back on the air again. How are you not doing that on streaming? And when you look at the most popular shows on streaming, Netflix, when they had The Office and Friends, they were like the top 2. And
Mhm.
they have 10 seasons or more, 9 or 10 seasons, and they have 200 some episodes that people can rewatch and rewatch and rewatch. How are we not getting to that point on streaming so far? Like, I don't understand how we're not doing these normal television budgets. Why do you have to try to get like a huge star that's going to
Mhm.
eat up millions an episode? Um, just just to turn out 6. I don't get it.
No, I don't get it either. And even on the more grand scale, like I think back to obviously, I'm a massive Walking Dead fan. In that show's prime, they would film 6 months out of the year. They would film 16 episodes of that show, 16 45-minute episodes of that show in a 6-month span. And they would kind of stagger the release of the halves a little bit, but they would film the 16 together, and boom, boom, you've got a whole year of content right there. Like, you've got all the people together, you got them all on set, you've got the schedules all synced up. Like, I don't get why. Again, it just comes back to the studios being cheap. Like, you got to give the project room to breathe. You've got to give it, and when I say room to breathe, I mean like you got to give it time. You can't just jam all this stuff into 6 episodes. You've got to let the story breathe. You've got to give people time, like we said, to fall in love with the characters. And it's just not something you can do in 6 or even really 8 episodes. Like, I think about Loki. The first season, I enjoyed it very much. And obviously, we had a ton of prior exposure to Tom Hiddleston, but it wasn't until season 2 of the show that like I really, really started to kind of like resonate with Sylvie and some of the TVA people. Like,
Yeah, all,
yeah,
all of them.
yeah, like they and their identities kind of started to show, and they just so they don't realize that by cutting these budgets and making these shorter seasons, they're essentially setting up their shows to fail unless you're like a Marvel, where it's just the machine is going so fast and so strong that nothing's going to knock it off its course. But like some of these smaller stations and stuff, yeah, dude, it's crazy.
Yeah, just it's one of the most frustrating things. I kind of want to go back to the to old television
Me
sometimes.
too, bro. Me too. It's to the point, no joke, where I purposely pay for the basic version of Disney Plus just because I miss commercials. It feels nostalgic to have commercials in my show and to like give you that natural little break. No joke. So every day we get closer to sort of coming full circle and going back to cable. So it's only a matter of
Yeah, if I don't know if you just saw this while we're recording. Apparently, Hulu, Disney Plus, and HBO Max are creating a combined bundle.
yep.
So there
And
you
they're
go.
they're gonna sell it through Xfinity Cable, and it's gonna be called. It's like, all right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
bro.
we'll see how that develops,
Round
but
and round we go. Round and round we go.
yeah, unfortunately. Well, I think that'll wrap us up this time.
Think
We got a
so.
little bit of a TV complaint there,
It's
but
all right.
yeah. Well, if you want to give us a follow at TO Infinity Saga on Twitter, um, email us marvelplusrecaps@gmail.com. That's the best place to reach us there. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. Um, we've been debating rebranding, I'll say, but I know we have a lot of followers on Spotify and stuff like that. So let us know. I'll put it in like the Spotify Q&A section, or you can also reach out to us. Let
Mhm.
us know if you're in favor of that or not, or do you like our name enough that you're like, I know when I want to look up this episode, I quickly am able to find your show, or like, I don't know. Like, I do want to kind of leave it open a bit for people
Mhm.
because we've kind of been doing very well with these X-Men recaps that I'm like, don't want to just spring that on people. So if we do choose to do that, it would be probably closer to Deadpool
Mhm.
and Wolverine type of
Yeah.
thing. But we're open to feedback. If you think that's a good idea or a bad idea, you can let us know. Um, yeah. But yeah, we're about to go talk Tales of the Empire over on the Pod Awaken. So make sure you check that out. That's our Star Wars podcast where we've been doing chronological Clone Wars rewatch and discussion. I've been doing my High Republic Road to the Acolyte series that will be winding down in a couple of weeks as we build up to our Acolyte coverage, which pretty much starts almost as soon as this show is done. It's like 2 weeks later
Yep. Not
that then
much of
we
a break.
shift over to that.
And naturally, as you'd expect, only 8 episodes.
Yes, yeah. You know what? I'll take 8/6 at this
Yeah.
point.
Same.
But still, yeah. Let's. I can understand it more for the sci-fi stuff, but
Yeah.
when you're talking like normal everyday shows,
Yeah.
like come on,
Shows that you can
it
walk
can't
in
be
and
that hard.
film 3 episodes in an afternoon if you really push the pedal hard enough. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Like come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's we're gonna be doing that over on the Pod Awaken. So make sure you check that out if you're a Star Wars fan as well. Ron and I will be covering the Acolyte over there. I just found out, by the way, that finale is the due date for my son.
Wow.
So if he, so it's like, hopefully he arrives late, I guess, so I
Yeah.
can watch this show and do a podcast. Hold on, honey. I know your water broke, but we got to record this. All right.
Use the force. Stay in the womb.
Yes. That over there, and like I mentioned, Elseworlds, a DC fan podcast, we'll be doing our Superman suit reveal episode with all of your non-hot takes over there, rational takes over there on Elseworlds. So make sure you check that out. That's coming. All those episodes should be up by Friday, is what I'll say. Everything that we're covering at the plugs here. So make sure you check all of those out. Thank you all for watching and listening along with us. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can like and subscribe to us here on the YouTube channel, and leave us comments here as well if you have any feedback. What's your ideas on how they can stop Magneto in Part 3? Have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you next time when we talk Tolerance is Extinction Part 3.